Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Um, Welcome to our second episode of Lens of the new year. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Lea Stewart. And a little bit about Lea is she's a senior design manager at Newell Brands in the baby division, leading up. She's leading a team of industrial designers to create car seats, strollers, bottles, and other products to bring sanity, safety, and joy to families. From her 20 years of experience, Lea can tell you that the common theme to winning design is to be empathetic, focus on the consumer, and apply a world-class aesthetic. Beyond her core role in industrial design, she's been a design educator, a blogger, a public speaker, a mom, and even a model maker. We're super grateful to have Lea on our show today. Thank you so much, Lea. Um, and for those who are tuning in, thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, I highly encourage you to ask them in the Q&A section or even in the chat. I'll be checking them throughout the whole Lens session, and we'll do our best to answer them. So with that being said, Lea, I'm going to hand things over to you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. First off, I'm going to try the screen share. We tested it beforehand, but let's just make sure that's working. Okay. Share. Get my chat up and hide. Cool. We can see it.
Good to go.
Like you said, you and I were chatting about, what kind of things should we talk about? We were brainstorming. Great conversations with Hector about so many things I could cover, but I wanted to tell you something that might be unique, something you might not have heard in other places. So that's why this is the secrets behind your career happiness in industrial design, because I want to make this useful. So hopefully there'll be some things you'll hear today that will be new. Hector did a great job of a little intro behind me. And I dropped some links in the chat if you want to find out more. But if we're going to be sharing secrets, I think we should get to know each other just a little bit better. So first, a little more about me. My mother, she did such a great job saving things from my childhood. And this one was one of my favorites. It was a story I must have written in maybe third or fourth grade or whenever they're teaching you cursive. And I think I had to write about, what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, an inventor that builds and puts things together and discovers new things. And if that isn't a definition of an industrial designer, then I don't know what is. So I think that's really cool that I didn't know what it was called, but I must have been thinking that way. Plus I put toy designer in there too, which I think is really cool. So an inventor, and I'd say that at least part of what I do could classify as an inventor. My favorite holiday is Halloween, and one of my favorite costumes from way back when I lived in Chicago was when I went as a trendy food truck. And that's my husband. He humored me as well and went as a hot dog vendor. Aren't we cute? And right now I live on a tiny lake in Michigan, in Kalamazoo, Michigan. That's my son. He's about to turn 3. And I absolutely love the sunsets we get at the lake. It's winter, so not as many right now, but you can kind of see I'm looking out at the lake right now, and the light is reflecting off the snow and giving me that nice glow. So I'll take it even in the winter. Okay. So now we know each other and we can get real. And my year has been like everyone else's year, where you're like, I got this. Oh, wait, it's a pandemic. Hold on, we're gonna get through this. So this is my son here. He helps me, get through that by his toddler joy just keeps me going. His all unknowingness and inspiration of just keep going. And so that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna focus on the happy place. All right, so that's me in my personal life, but the other thing that keeps me going is my team. So Hector mentioned this, I'm a senior manager at Newell Brands, and it's a very large company, and we're divided in the design group into divisions. The divisions are sort of groups of brands that do similar things. So my division is baby gear. And this is my industrial design team. We do some fun things together, like make silly Photoshop pictures of ourselves during pandemic to keep community. So this is us during one of those exercises. So that definitely keeps me going, and they do amazing work, which keeps me going. So this is the kind of work that my team does. Strollers, high chairs, bottles, pacifiers, car seats, like Hector was mentioning. So amazing stuff, and it's complex too. So I love that it combines that aspect of furniture design, the bringing that emotive aesthetic, but also dealing with all the complexity behind the safety of the product. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to talk about a couple things today, which I think are most relevant to keeping happy in your ID career. So first one is really understanding what is the industry looking for from me as an industrial designer. And then how can I stay relevant and purposeful? Because it's not just about what your job wants from you, but what you want out of your job. So I want to tell you a story about a job applicant. And I got permission from this applicant to share this story. And it's an example of what they did to apply. So here's a cover letter. They're talking about some really great things here. So they reference a competitor to Graco. So we work on the brand Graco. So that's great. They're telling me that they have relevant experience with the competitive set. Some other things here. Oh, they worked at a consulting firm. So they have some variety of experience in different types of places to work. Oh, I see some things about hard skills and soft skills, knowledge of manufacturing. This is awesome. And look, they also have experience with relevant product like juvenile and soft goods, which on strollers, car seats, etc. You do need that kind of experience. So it sounds good, right? I mean, this seems like a pretty good applicant. So moving on to their work, now this looks decent too. Some things that I could tell just by looking at portfolio samples, I can tell that they can do CAD. Looks like they can do some prototyping. There's some shoes that show you that they can do some soft goods. Maybe they even made those themselves. Variety like the furniture design, that's relevant. So, looks decent, right? So why not give this candidate an interview? Let's just think about that for a second. What may be the reason? And here comes the first big secret. You will never know sometimes. This candidate was me. This was 2005, and I was applying to Graco, and I never heard back. But now I am the head of design, industrial design for the baby division. So this proves that coming back again is a worthy thing to do. And you will just never know sometimes why you didn't get a call back. There's so many reasons. It could be that the company was posting a job, but it was intended for someone internally as a promotion, and they never intended at all to take external applicants. It could be that the job got canceled, that they weren't able to hire. It could be unconscious bias, and you'll never know it. So it's just the story I'll start off with as you can do everything that I'm going to tell you to do, and you still may never know why. Okay, but keep trying, and it's always relevant to come back again, especially if you really want to work for that company. I'll tell you that I didn't actually remember about this. I was searching through some old files to try to find images for the presentation, and I was like, what? There's a Graco file in here? I didn't even remember. So it's not like I've been holding that all these years. I actually didn't even remember. So that's my first surprise story. And one thing though, like maybe they didn't like my name logo, which I hate now too. So don't do a name logo. You don't need to. All right. So back to our main program. What is the industry looking for from me? I want to set you all up for success for all those companies you do want to apply to and get that interview. So the main thing, this is the most important thing, is they are looking at the whole you. Not just your hard skills, but your hard skills, who you are, so your character, and how you think. And you have a couple ways that you can show this, right? So you have your portfolio, you have your cover letter to some extent, or email introduction, or any kind of way you're contacting the company. And then you have your in-person interview. There's a lot of information out there about your portfolio, especially. I see lots of webinars, lots of people talking about that. So I'm going to try to tell you some things that may be different or new news about these areas. The first one being on the hard skills. So it is totally okay in your portfolio to show a section that's just one image to prove hard skill. You don't have to show a whole project. So example here, this could be to show just the skill of CAD, or just the skill of rendering, or something more specific, like just the skill of being able to apply images in KeyShot, like the control panel on the thermostat here. So it's totally fine. You don't need to have a full story behind each thing you show if you just want to show a section with hard skills. I actually love seeing that on people's websites or in their portfolio. You know, you have the stories too. Of course, you want the stories too, but then a section, maybe you have some special skills that other people don't. Maybe you paint, or maybe you do some other thing on the side that would set you apart from some other industrial designers. It's great to show that stuff. Some skills that might not be considered hard skills, this is the skill of ideation, or different methodologies of how to approach design problems. That's a great thing to show too. A little teaser here, this is what I'm going to be doing a masterclass on coming up at the next part of the offsite. So if you don't know how to do some of these things, that's what I'm going to be talking about. So, and you don't need to show full stories here too, like one picture with images just to tee it up, like how you lead a virtual ideation session, or how you use physical prototyping as a way to do ideation. Like that's what the trash cans are there. We're coming up with ways to make it easier to hold a bag in a trash can. Okay, so that was show your skills. Next one is showing you. So a lot of people skip over this in the portfolio, that not having some kind of about me or a way to talk about themselves. It's great to have that on the resume, but also in the portfolio, have something that gives you a window to talk about yourself. So that could be a visual resume. Like here's an example where it's just a background, and then you can kind of talk about what you want to talk about from your experience that's relevant to that company. Another example here is, I feel it's really important that if I were applying somewhere, I would want them to know that I give talks like this on the side. I am very involved in women in design. Just having that in there would give me a good read on what's the company's reaction to that. Do they have anything to say about that? If they don't, then that's very telling in itself. Okay, third thing. So many people miss this in their portfolio. Great talking about process, great talking about how they interviewed lots of people, they had insights, they translated that to ideas, but then they miss telling me how they made the aesthetic decisions. Why did the style lines end up like they did? Why did you give the surfacing treatment that you did? I know the thinking's there because the object is beautiful, but you're not talking through how you made those decisions. So example here, this is a infant car seat for a brand called Baby Jogger. Now Baby Jogger is all about keeping parents moving, freeing up their lives so that enabling them to go where they want to go. So it's about movement, it's about being dynamic. How do you do that on an object that doesn't move? The car seat is static, stays in the car. One trick here is that we used a point of origin. So all of our style lines are sort of radiating off of that point to give it that look of motion, to give it that feeling, that emotion, that it will keep you moving and active as a parent. That isn't the only thing, of course, but just to have something as a background to talk about those aesthetic decisions. Not that it just, you know, it looks good, but why does it connect back to the brand, to the emotions you're trying to tell in that product story? Okay, so make sure that you put that in there, the aesthetic decisions too. Okay, everybody got that so far? So make sure you got some skills, make sure you're talking about yourself and about me, and make sure you're talking about your aesthetic decisions. Time for some more secrets. Let me flip my notes here. I'm going to let you in on some interview questions. These are actual questions that I ask in interviews, and I ask a lot of them because I'm on our Newell design hiring committee, but I picked out some of my favorites. If I asked your best friend or close family member, what would they tell me is amazing about you? So this is why I love this one, is because it kind of takes it out of what you think about yourself, and it's what do other people think about you? And to have that self-awareness really tells me something. That, like, are you self-aware? How are you going about answering the question is as important as what the answer actually is. So I love this one. Practice this one. Then I flip the script. So same question, except for I'm saying, what does that family member or friend think is difficult about you? 99% of the time, this is you're taking that thing that's amazing about you and you're overusing it, right? So you're confident person, that's what's amazing about you. Well, you overuse it and now you alienate people, or your ego gets in the way of bringing in other people's thoughts, or something like that. So are you self-aware enough to know that sometimes you overuse that strength, or to actually know what other people think is difficult about you? You're sitting there wondering, like, why does this matter in industrial design? Because you're going to have to work with people, because you have to have that character too. I want people on my team that other people want to partner with, that want to have, like, they want to have a good vibe at work. Okay, how about critique? What do you do when you get feedback you don't agree with? I would love to hear in an interview someone talk about a previous time that they didn't agree. How did they handle that? This is always a good telling one. So practice that one too. And lastly, here's an interesting one. This kind of relates to how you think. How much would you charge to wash all the windows in Montana? And how would you go about calculating that? I'll tell you that this one takes people off guard for sure. And most of the time they kind of sit for a second and then they just say $30 million. My whole point of it is to tell me how you go about calculating that. So it doesn't matter what you say as the number. I want to know how you're thinking through the problem. That will tell me, what if you get any kind of problem given to you at work, or maybe it's not even a design problem, but it's a people problem, it's a political problem. How are you going to go about dealing with it? All right, guys, learning something? Give me a shout out in the chat. You liking it? Okay, awesome. Woohoo! So how can I stay relevant and feel purposeful? Let's change the script a little bit and not talk about necessarily what the company is going to be looking for from you. What are you looking for from the company or from your own career? So I get this kind of question from people who have just graduated, all the way to people who have 20 years experience or on the verge of retirement. It is the ultimate question of just staying in your industrial design career and progressing. So one thing you can do is just kind of stay in the know. Look at industry trends, look at, be a part of the broader design community. And that could be joining groups, following people on social media, being involved in things like Industrial Design Society of America, or joining webinars like this one. Another way is just looking at what students are doing. I mean, they're the next generation. So what kind of things are they learning that you might not know? If you have more experience, what might you need to go know, because all the students coming out of school are now learning something different. And always having a mentor is helpful. So if I was a betting woman, I'd say one of the trends for industrial design is visualizing in 3D space. Okay, whether that's AR, VR, something else, I think that is going to grow. We are all going to need skills that go from, now it's like digital tablet drawing to 3-dimensional space drawing. So that's my prediction as one thing. I'd love to hear some other predictions you guys have. Drop them in the chat. Okay. Specifically, if you're looking at a company or a place that you want to work for, seek context about what's going on in that company, even outside of just kind of the products that you see that they're launching. So just a couple easy screenshots here from my own company. I mean, what is the news saying? If I just Google Newell Brands news, what are they predicting? How about what is their social media? What are they portraying about themselves? And then specifically, what is their design group doing outside of just the product realm? So a couple things that just looking at these images, I might say, there's a bunch of articles on the new CEO. He looks awesome. He's saying things like, be bold. It's about function and beauty. All great. Thumbs up. Love that. Oh, I love this post on LinkedIn about broadening mindset and promoting equality. That's awesome. Hey, all the financial people are saying stocks up. That's great. And looks like on their Instagram page that not only are they product designers, but they have a lot of skills in graphic design as well. Maybe it'd be a bonus if I talk to them about my graphic design skills as well as my industrial design skills in our interview. So those are the kinds of things. Get some context about what you're seeing as that company's trend or how they're trying to portray themselves as a way to lead that into how you portray yourself in an interview. All right. How about the feel purposeful part? This is one of the biggest questions I get about, especially when people are not loving their job. How am I going to stay feeling purposeful? The biggest one is about creative leadership. It's about not thinking about just yourself, but going beyond yourself. That is how you're going to progress no matter if you're a manager or if you're an individual contributor. Everybody needs creative leadership. So be someone other people want to work with. Like if you are not thinking about how well you work with others, you're going to have a ceiling to your career. If you're a solo show all the time, there's only so far that you're going to go in progressing in your ID career. Some examples here, like one year, just as a fun thing, I kept all of the notes that people had written me that year. And it's so nice to reflect back. People are saying things in these notes like, you motivated me, you exemplified balance, you're a driving force, you bring enthusiasm, you're a sounding board, you kept me calm. That one was from my boss. So these are the kinds of things that are going to matter more and more as you progress in your career. thinking about how you're affecting the broader design community at work and beyond work. The other important one is inspiring people with vision. And this also doesn't have to be just for people managers. This is for everyone. So example here is when I was the manager of Rubbermaid commercial products, and sometimes working on something like a trash receptacle doesn't seem all that visionary. But if you're that person that puts it out there to the other designers on the team to cast a vision of, hey, those architects, they need you. Those interior designers, they need you because they want amazing things in their space. So what could that be? It could be something like this. You know, imagine that space that it could go in. You could, let's say you're like a staff level industrial designer, you could go first, be the first one to throw an image out there of an inspiring waste receptacle and get everybody else inspired to do something even better. Here's another one of a recycling center. Imagine what that space could be like. Imagine what this could be like for that cleaning professional, of how much easier this is going to make their life and how much more beautiful it's going to make the space. So casting of visions for all of us. Did I mention that you should be someone that other people want to work with? So sometimes you just have to have some fun and stop all of the day-to-day for just a second and do something fun. In this case, there's me wearing a prototype of a trash can around my neck for a silly picture. Sometimes we just need to stop for a minute and have some fun with our team. So be somebody others want to work with. And did I mention you should inspire other people with vision? So another example here, old dated products. This is feeding equipment for babies from the brand Nook. Had been in the line quite a long time. So I had 2 designers and an intern working on this program. And it's like, okay, envision what the future of Nook could be. And you could just see it. You could see that one of them had a couple years experience. The other designer had going on 20 years experience. And then the intern, they were all feeding off each other. So forget how much experience you have. It's all about inspiring each other to come up with something beautiful. And you could tell in this work that that is exactly what was happening, that they just loved talking about the form, loved talking about the decisions they were making. They were honest with their critique of each other, and it inspired. And you can totally tell. It's beautiful. And it also got several utility patents. Who thought we could innovate on a fork and a spoon with this new utensil for babies who are just starting to learn self-feeding? It makes it easier to pick up the non-solid food. I think that that's awesome. So a couple more questions that people usually have swirling around in their head in this space of keeping purposeful. Will I age out of industrial design? You know, it's like, oh, I don't know that I see too many people that are industrial designers that are 60 something years old. Is there a place for me? Am I really satisfied with my work? I'm not really sure. Some days I feel I am, some days not. Am I getting used? Is my job feeling like it's something altruistic? Are they taking advantage of me? Am I getting paid enough? And why do I really want more money anyway? What am I going to use it for? Why do I have this feeling that am I worth it? Well, these are life ponderings questions, and I'm just going to give you one simple exercise for trying to figure this out, because this isn't a 25-minute webinar kind of question, but we're going to start you on the right path. So this kind of stuff comes up, especially if you're not too happy with your job. So you need a values check-in. When I talk about that, I'm going to oversimplify it here. So imagine that you like something like music. We're just going to take that as an example. So instead of like liking music isn't a value, you need to get to the core of what is it that is the value behind me liking music? Is it for self-care? Like, do I meditate to music? Is it where I get to power down? Or is it about community? Do I like to go to shows with like-minded people who like the same music? Am I in fan clubs of a certain band with other people that like that same music? Is it for personal growth? Do I create my own music? Am I learning new tools or instruments to create music? So first you got to identify that. So let's, for this exercise, just pretend that it's about community. Okay, so then you step back and you say, well, how does that value of community relate to my job? Am I able to get that value out of my job? Or is my job actually keeping me from furthering that value? So you could use some interview questions if you're looking for a new job and you want to see if there's a way that that job could have community, or you could just sort of self-use these questions to evaluate in my current job, is there a way for me to further my values? So for example, we're just going to take community as the value. You could say, give me an example of how your company helps create community between designers. And hopefully they're going to tell you things like, oh, we have these team building events and we have these other things we do that create culture and we pair designers together, et cetera, et cetera. If they don't have much to say behind that, then that might give you your answer, that they're either you're going to go in there and help them create something that furthers community between designers, or they don't have a lot of that value to be sought out. Here's another one that can tell you a little bit more about community. Do designers usually work solo or with other designers on projects? So this is an interesting one. Just because they don't, like, let's say they're like, oh no, everyone has their own projects. We like to keep them separate. It doesn't mean that they don't have opportunities where they come together. So you can use a follow-up question. Do you have group critiques? Are there times when people come together? So it can be an interesting question to evolve the conversation. Or it gives you an opportunity to say, well, I am actually really great at coming in and helping create community in companies, if you're looking for someone who could help with that. So just because the company doesn't have a lot of what you're looking for now, doesn't mean that you can't be the change maker. It just gives you awareness of what you're walking into. And if this is in your current company, like let's say you really value community, this could give you insight into why you might not be really loving your job. And you could then go suggest, hey, could we have more group projects? Hey, I'd love to help host more team building events. Like, you can be the change maker. I'd say only if you see it's a complete dead end, only if you think, nope, this is too much of an uphill battle, it's not going to happen, and there's never going to be any change that will align with my values, then it's time to start looking for your exit plan. Another one for community, how do designers help each other learn new skills? So of course, companies can send you to training seminars, et cetera, but what about learning from each other? I think that's a really valuable one that helps create community. All right, let's recap because I talked about a lot. First off, you will never know what every company is looking for. So you can have the perfect portfolio. You can think that you would fit right in and you still might not get a call back. It's okay. It might not have anything to do with you. Keep trying. Try again. There is no reason not to go back if you really think that you're the right fit. What's the industry looking for from me? Hard skills, who you are and how you think. And then staying relevant and purposeful, do your research. Everyone needs creative leadership, and do a values check-in if you're feeling like you might need a change. Okay. Hector, you want to do some questions? See if anybody wants to follow up on anything?
Of course. Yeah, and for those who don't have questions, I have questions of myself. So thank you so much for putting together the secrets of industrial design. I'm sure going to use those to go get a job at Newell. So thank you. All right, so here are a couple of questions that are coming in, and then again, I have my own questions. But we're gonna go back to kind of the beginning of your presentation. You gave an example of your own kind of cover letter, and you had a little branding on the top left corner. And I've noticed that a lot. I feel like that is still a thing that happens. Why is student branding such a turnoff when it comes to, you know, trying to get hired?
So I don't know that it's always a turnoff. I think mine was particularly bad. So I'll tell you that that was my maiden name, Bogdan. And people couldn't say it right, didn't know how to pronounce it. I think that I probably had some anxiety around that and wanted to make it something fun, but I didn't need to. You really don't need to do that. Other things, if you kind of like graphic design and you want to play around with it, great, but you're an individual, you're not a company, so you don't necessarily need a logo when you're interviewing as an individual.
Yeah, that's something that I see a lot. My students start generating their own brand when they're presenting their work, and I'm like, not really necessary. I mean, the you could be really good at it, but let's focus on your work. I don't, and so I do also see that a lot when students are trying to apply for a position. They get really intense with the brand of their portfolio, and then the cover letter and everything looks, and sometimes it's really bad. So I'm really happy that you showed that, because I think we forget that those who are in a position like you are, I feel like we all think that you had a perfect kind of, a perfect story or perfect trajectory into getting a position, but we all
Definitely not.
kind of struggle, and we kind of hit or miss, and we kind of just got to try. We gotta keep trying. So I thank you for sharing that. You mentioned a little bit about your commitment to the community. It's 2020, or it's 2021, but last year in 2020,
Still
um,
feels like 2020.
we're in the 13th month of 2020. But last year, you started to have a more kind of public profile through Women in Design in Chicago, and on social media. Can you talk a little bit about what motivated you to kind of get back into that?
Sure, I think it was January that the Women ID Chicago put out a call on Instagram, just calling for volunteers. And when I saw that, I was like, yes, I want to do this. So it was one of those instances where as soon as somebody asked, I'm game. So that was the start of it. And then in the fall, there was a opportunity with the IDSA Northern Lakes to do a panel talk. And it was about women in different generations of industrial design. And so I'm in this panel talk, and it was with two other women who have even more experience than me. And all of a sudden I realize, oh, I'm the old person too. Oh God, right? That's me now. All right, okay. So what would really help is if other less experienced designers could see more of me, it could then inspire them to know that they could have longevity in their career. Because I have missed that most of my career. Like I barely know any women in industrial design that have more experience than me. And I've started to seek them out more, but we're a needle in a haystack,
Yeah.
basically. So I ramped up my social media. I'm trying to do more sharing just to give awareness to what it's like to be a very experienced woman in ID.
That's great. And I think, there's not a lot of organizations that call for help and ask the community to step up. And if you do see that, please consider being a part of a community, because I think we need it more than ever. Here is a question from Miranda. I'm sure you know who Miranda is.
Hey, Miranda.
Her question is, how does a candidate show they're confident without coming across as arrogant?
I think the best way is to acknowledge what you still have to learn. So you can say everything that you are really good at, but acknowledge that there are things that you are still learning. No one is 100% good at absolutely everything. There are no ID unicorns. And I don't think any company is expecting that. And so, in fact, if you showed that you're putting that in the context of the company, like, hey, I know I need more experience with research, and your company does so much on that end, I'd love to be able to support that and learn from it. Then it tells them, "Ooh, you did some pre-work to find out about our company."
Yeah, that's always good too. You don't want to be going into an interview not knowing anything about what position you're applying for. So always good to do your research. Here is a question from Danielle. Her question is, how would you advise people putting their personal interest or the me stuff on their website? And would you advise people to include some of these information in their cover letters when applying for jobs?
Yes, and for the applying for the job, pick out the things that are most relevant. Like if you, let me try to just make up a scenario. Let's say you're really, really into video games. Make sure you're explaining how that could be relevant to what they do. Maybe you can tell them that that's how you get inspired about what could be in the future, because there's so many things that portray the future in video games that it inspires you. So make sure you follow up with that why. It's even on your website. Don't just put like I love basketball, but like why.
Mhm.
I love to learn how they do different plays together. Something that could be, bring it back to the relevancy to ID.
Right. But if it's just like a random, you have a bunch of still art and
Oh
there's
yeah, definitely put that on there. Yeah, art is extremely relevant to ID. And that's definitely something that you'd want to put on there.
I always heard that if you wanted to be a good designer, you had to put off having a family, hobbies, etc. How does a designer achieve work-life balance? And that is a question from Miranda.
You have to put off having a family. I think that this might be true in the aspect that ID needs to become more accessible, right? That for people coming right out of school, you might have to move for the job you want. And if you already have a family, that becomes more difficult. Here's what I'll say about that. The pandemic is opening up more opportunity for going anywhere, virtual work. So I think that actually has made things more accessible. You might be looking at a small company like, oh, I really, really want to work for this amazing consulting firm. I mean, they've never had anyone yet that's had to go on a maternity leave. Then you just have to be the first one to pave the way.
Yeah.
So it's some of this is being the pioneer. Right? I would never say like if your family is ready to expand, don't put that off because you're afraid of something with your career. I I don't see that as a main barrier in the future.
Let's kind of shift the conversation into UX because I feel like the last 10 years, UX has really a lot of industrial design recent grads are starting to find interest in UX when they can't find opportunities in ID. Um, Here's a question from Anonymous, and this is her question or their question. I'm an industrial design graduate. I started getting more inclined towards UX design, but I still have interest in doing products related to kids. I'm in a confusing I'm in a confusion of whether I should choose industrial design or UX. Can you give a way on how I can take that decision?
Hmm. I think it depends on what's motivating the decision. Is it that you're seeing that there are a lot more jobs out there with a UX title, so you feel like there's more opportunity? Or is it because specifically you said something about wanting to do something with children and you think that there is more opportunity to help with something on the user experience side, uh, maybe less opportunity on the physical product side. So that is a hard one to know how to help you make the decision. But I can also say that it doesn't have to be you make a decision and then that's forever.
Mm-hmm.
Toggle back and forth. In fact, it's really intriguing when you have an applicant that has some other kind of experience. Just went through a cycle of interviewing interns for our first ever virtual internship at Newell Brands this summer. And it was very difficult. So many good candidates. It was painstaking, like no other time before. Were we laboring over who's the right person because there were so many good ones. But what set the people apart that we ended up extending offers to is that they had UX and software design experience in their background. So I think it can be an asset to actually toggle between.
Yeah, now you talked about this kind of virtual internship that Newell Brands is about to launch. Because we are all working from home, are the stakes higher for those who are looking for jobs, whether it's an internship or a full-time position? Because you're no longer going in person to interview, you're no longer getting, as an interviewer, you don't really feel the person's energy. You don't get to determine like, oh, this person, is very well put together. Everything's done online now. Are the stakes higher because everything is done online and every portfolio is starting to kind of look the same, or the level playing field is now like, pretty equal? And I think you just kind of answered it by, if you do have other disciplines that you're really good at and you're able to marry that, you're actually, that's a huge advantage for you.
It is an advantage, but I wouldn't say that that would take the place of you lacking some other kind of really core skill.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that you had no visualization, hand visualization skills, or something like that.
Right.
You have no CAD experience, but you had a background in something else. I don't know that it would make up for it. This was like everybody was so good, and then that extra thing made them stand out.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, you don't have to have, it is not a table stakes to have some other experience outside of industrial design. It's just an interesting thing when somebody does that, they're coming to the table with that lens of diversity, that their skill set has something else in its background that could bring a new perspective. On the topic of is the virtual interviewing making the stakes higher? I think in some ways it is, because there's more accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, which I love as the person who's interviewing, is that I can interview a wider range of people. I can get the word out more. I don't have to fly someone in for an interview. So it's good for me. It is making it harder for applicants. There's also, the economy is still recovering. The jobs report came out recently and unemployment is still very high. So the number of jobs are less. I'm very familiar with this. I graduated in 2002, a couple months after 9/11. So it was tough. I did not have my first full-time job for about 5 years after I graduated. So don't think that because, you're a year out of school and you haven't found that job at that tools company or appliance company or automotive like you're supposed to, that something's wrong with you. It's really interesting to have someone that has like a winding career path or that has had some variety in their experience.
Yeah, plus you're never gonna graduate in the perfect year that the economy and that there's jobs. Like that just doesn't exist.
No.
Here's a question from Emily. What is one of the biggest learning curves that you've encountered throughout your career as you've become a design manager?
These are really good questions. Let's see. I think the thing that you have to learn on the job when you're talking about learning curves is helping individuals. So every single designer is different. There is no playbook on how to help designers. It's looking at that individual designer, like one designer, understanding their strengths, where they need help, how to help them as an individual. So I think we so often, when we're designing a product, we're trying to get this lens of an entire user group, right? We're not looking at individuals. We're looking at a cross section of people so that we can try to distill an opportunity. Being a manager, or as you progress in your career, even if it's an individual contributor, treating each other as individuals is the biggest learning curve.
Okay. Now we talked about getting your first job, right? So you just graduated from school, you just got hired at a junior level position. And everything that you know is, people say what you know because what you surround yourself with, what your environment looks like. But there's some things that you don't know. What are some obstacles that you see junior designers, or maybe like a secret that you can tell us about starting your first job that you might not immediately know?
I think from one of the things we were talking about earlier of having the confidence and showing that in the interview, that it is totally okay to not be an expert and to just seek more learning. It's like that whole first year in your job, your new job that you're just described, to just take it in, be a sponge, and directly ask people for their help or for sharing their knowledge. Without the direct asking, there might not be people who understand that that's something you might need, even if it's just sitting down for lunch with somebody or doing a virtual lunch and hearing about their experience. What are they saying? Most people are willing to do that with you. And it will help you create a broader network within your company.
Now, you're a design manager at Newell. Imposter syndrome, do you still experience that? Have you ever experienced that? Is that real?
Oh, I'm going to get vulnerable with you for a second here. Yes, the biggest case of imposter syndrome that I had was when I became the manager of the baby group, because I wasn't a parent And in fact, I really, really wanted to be a parent and couldn't. I had infertility. So it's like, how do you hide that?
Mhm.
Or, be appropriate for work with that. And you're managing other people, empowering them to think like parents, right? To put themselves in those shoes. So sometimes you got to fake it till you make it, right? The compartmentalizing, the just showing the confidence that I know what I'm doing. That event, it didn't take long in being in that role to know it was going to be okay, that I wasn't going to be unhappy every day thinking about parents and babies. That I had a great team that kept me going, and all the problem solving was just like any other problem solving, whether I was thinking about a parent or janitor or whatever other kind of user I've thought about in the past. But yeah, that was the scariest moment in my career of, oh gosh, I'm putting myself in the exact position of something I can't be. It worked out. I have a 3-year-old son now, but even if it didn't, I think it'd be fine, because that's how it's like we're trained to compartmentalize, and it's not for me, it's for this user group. So I'd say, like, if it's almost like use that same tool of empathy and of discovery of who you want to be, and just act like that until you feel comfortable being that.
Did you have to be a parent to be a design manager for your division?
Obviously not, because because I was without being a parent. And no, I tell people that all the time who are interviewing. No, in fact, I have to try really, really hard now to not have my experience cloud my thinking, because it's really easy to get in that trap of thinking that my experience is everybody's experience, and it's not. So I think it's very important to have people who are not parents working on this to come at it from a different lens, to ask the questions that somebody just thinking about expanding their family might have. So no, 100% no. And just like you don't need to be a doctor to design a medical tool, you don't need to be a parent to design a stroller.
Yeah. You don't need to be a dog to design dog toys. So
It would be fun.
I have a couple of more questions here, and I think we can kind of start wrapping this up. One question here is from a student. They would like to know if they're interested in being an entrepreneur in design, a design entrepreneur, and they want to start their own product line, something that is low cost production. What are some things that they should keep in mind when starting, besides a little bit
Well,
of this
the
101?
one thing that they just called out was the low cost production. I mean, that is a tough part.
Mhm.
Having your own business is the overhead, right? The tooling, manufacturing costs, etc. So I think that's a really important thing to look into, to know what those costs be to actually manufacture something, to inventory something. How are you going to distribute it? Like, and if you don't know that kind of thing, find some small business associations or a mentor or someone else that can help inform you about that. I've never done that myself, so I don't have that insight, but I do know whenever we're working on a project at work, I'm just like, wow, now I know why not everybody in the world is making their own strollers.
Mhm.
It is a lot of overhead.
And a lot of testing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Um, we just started 2021, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. And you just mentioned, our economy with the job, with the layoffs. Um, in our industry, there are more industrial designers than there are opportunities and jobs. If you are about to graduate this year, in a couple of months in May, or you're a recent graduate from last year, or you lost your job and looking, what are some things that they can do to stay focused, stay the course, and be in the game and continue to
Hmm.
be positive that something will change?
I probably don't have things to tell you that you haven't been hearing already in this space. So there aren't too many more secrets. Networking
Mhm.
be the key, and then continuing to learn. So use that kind of extra headspace you might have to watch some additional YouTube videos on a particular skill, join one of Hector's offsites. I've heard great things, plug there. Uh,
Plug.
or find other ways to continue to learn while you're searching. You can also start to expand out of looking for just jobs that say like industrial designer in the title. When I first graduated, I was a personal assistant for a person who was looking to make a book about design.
Mm.
That, and I also worked part-time in a consulting firm. So I mean, I don't think I would have been specifically looking for a personal assistant as a job title, but of course I learned a lot. Like I learned tons about layout. I had to do all the research behind the book. So there's really random opportunities out there that might fall outside of a normal keyword search.
My first quote unquote official job coming out of school, I was an assistant to an architect at an architecture firm in the north side of Chicago, because I
Mm-hmm.
knew how to use Revit, and I knew how to use a little bit of AutoCAD. But I was there for about a year and a half, and learned a lot about, well, at the time, I thought that the information was not going to be useful, but I learned a lot about building violations and building codes,
Yeah.
architecture, and just structural integrity of buildings. And I was like, I'm never going to use this again. Um, but yeah, no, that information is very useful now as I'm helping my parents rebuild their home. I'm currently looking to buy property. So
Oh, that's
you
awesome.
you just never
Mhm.
know when, and obviously like architecture, that thing might be pretty close to design. The software and a lot of the skills kind of translate over. So you're never, I don't think anyone's going to have the perfect story of, hey, this is how I became an industrial designer. Even if you like watch all
Yeah.
of the TED Talks on YouTube, there's no one that is a perfect designer. Everyone has a very unique story, which is how they ended up on TED Talks. So absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like a very winding career path you might have.
So my last question to you, what do you look forward to in 2021? Um,
Mm.
besides working from home, do you miss the office?
Of course, I miss the office, but do a really great job of keeping in touch and having community. Use that word again. What do I look forward to in 2021? I'm going to take this a little bit more personal, and I want to see my parents again. It's been a while. So I look forward to that. And friends. I mean, I am not originally from Michigan, so getting to just see anybody outside of Michigan will be, if I can do that in 2021, that'll be enough. As my, as everyone's kind of reality has changed, my expectations of what is fun is changing too.
Yeah,
So let's all hope that that can happen. Let's travel outside the state this year.
absolutely. Well, Leah, thank you so much for your insights, for your time, and for these amazing secrets that you put together. For those
Thank
who are
you.
watching, I hope you were taking notes. And if you weren't, you're lucky because this session is being recorded and we will upload it later this week on YouTube. Um, but thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for asking those wonderful questions. We will see everyone at our next lunch session, and have a wonderful Sunday. Leah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.